Hi, everyone. We are looking today at another Don Q rum because there was a gentleman on YouTube who asked me to kind of like take a look at the more upscale versions, and there's still about two more to come. This is the Don Q Gran Añejo Reserva XO, which is bottled at 40% by the Destilería Serrallés out of Puerto Rico. Bare bones. So that's quite a mouthful to put on a label, but you know what? They seem to have managed it. Now, I've actually reviewed the Don Q Gran Añejo before. That was about somewhere around 2018, 2019, and I rated it 81 points. I didn't think it really enthused me that much. It had a bottle. At that time, it seemed to be a fairly bit more upscale in terms of its presentation, right? Because the bottle was really quite nice and it had a fair bit of information on it. Not as much as I would have liked. In fine, back then, the rum, the Gran Añejo, was 6 to 12 years old. It was a blend of rums of those ages. No filtration, no additions, no nothing, and it was bottled at the same tame 40%, column still all the way molasses based. You know the drill, right? This one is a little bit different. Now, the XO term in the rum world is somewhat of a slippery word, or abbreviation, because it stands for extra old, but it has no actual legal definition beyond what is generally accepted. Sort of like a generally understood sort of thing. In brandy and cognac, it's a bit more rigorously defined as anything over 6 years old. And I think the AOC in Martinique and Guadeloupe and Madeira and Réunion, they have the same sort of thing. All right, they do define it within the AOC, but for the rest of the world, you can use it without actually having to worry about what it actually means. However, since the original Gran Añejo was 6 to 12 years old, youngest part was 6, right? You could reasonably assume that this one is the same. It's not. This is actually a blend of rums from 9 to 12 years old, plus they've got an extra addition of a 50-year-old Solera rum in this as well. How much, we really don't know. And that's really kind of neat because it adds that bottom heaviness or a little bit more complexity to the overall flavor profile, right? What do I think of it? Well, okay. In this case, I just have a sample, and that sample was filched from Duncan Hayter, who was the guy at the German Rum Fest who let me run through the entire line. I think it was his daughter who was helping me out, making sure that I had everything in nicely in a row and talked to me for time out of mind. But I wanted to give him a shout out because I think he was a really nice guy. But I did run through the entire series at that time, and this one was one of the ones that I quite liked. It smells really nice. And yeah, one of the things that comes straight out of the bat at you is a certain floral and fruitiness that is a step above the 7-year-old we looked at last week. Now, the 7-year-old is definitely a key rum of the world. I have no bones about making that happen. The Gran Añejo is actually just a little bit better, and one wonders whether they were trying to go a little bit more upscale, didn't have enough 12-year-old to make a 12-year-old, so they decided to do a blend and call it the XO. But you have a lot of cherries, you have grapes, you have a bit of winey notes, not too much, just enough to kind of like add a touch there. Very ripe mangoes, cranberries, that sort of thing. It is also redolent somewhat of crushed walnuts, and it does have a little bit of burnt marshmallows. You know, when you're out on the fire and you put your thing there, and after a while it all kind of turns into a burnt mist. You smell that. Well, that's what this is. That's what it, there's a trace of that in the background here. It's actually quite nice. And of course, there's the vanilla and the cinnamon, which is really almost like standard, right? Tasting it. 40%. Again, you're not going to get much here. All right. It's not precisely thin. It's actually faintly luscious. How about that? All right. It's not thin enough to be scratchy and bitchy and nasty to you, and it's not going to try and tear your head off. Of course, you won't get that. Right. It is actually quite great in terms of what it is. A 40% rum that doesn't have any sweetening or any kind of additive or coloring or chill filtration or any nonsense like that. It's really quite good. Oh yeah. That's really quite good. You're getting the same cherries. You're getting the same very ripe fruits of apples and pears, a little bit of watermelon here. I think there is also some red grapes or very dark grapes. Muscatel, perhaps. Who knows? We did the Legendary not long ago, so maybe my thinking is bending in that direction. You know, the same spices before. There's nothing really new being introduced here. The same marshmallows are there, the same spices are there, right? It has a really nice mouth feel. It goes down really easily and really well. What it doesn't do is it doesn't actually challenge you. And although everything plays together really nice, to some extent, I think that the faintness, or if you will, the 40% standard strength is what hampers this from achieving true greatness. I do believe that if they chuck this up to 45, even 48%, right, went straight to 12 years old, I mean, this fucking thing would be absolutely fantastic. As it is, it's not too bad. All right. I have no hesitation recommending it. I would give this about 84, 85 points. That's about it for it, except with one last comment. I always like having one last comment. Good God, I just talk forever. Anyway, after a while in my personal rum journey, which stretches back so long, I kind of went away from Spanish style rums. I appreciated the Havana Club, Selección de Maestros, and some of the upscale versions thereof. I did enjoy, to a point, other Cuban rums. I was okay with Dominican Republic and Panama and even Peru and Guatemala and whatever else, but gradually I moved away from them. I thought they weren't adventurous enough. Too much of their effort was focused on barrel management and blending. And to some extent, I think that's what the issue is with me here too, because this just promotes the same style that they've always had. And when you consider what the Australians, the UK guys, and the ones in Jamaica and Barbados, whatever, where they're experimenting with, fermentation techniques, a little bit more ester stuff here. In other words, they're doing their work before the stuff even goes into the still, and then they're playing around with the plates and the stills and everything else. And then, of course, they're also doing what the Spanish maestros horneros do and play around with the barrel management as well. So they're basically taking all three steps at the same time, while Puerto Rican and other rums, although not some of the newer micros that are making big waves now, they tend to be really good, but within the ambit of what they've always done. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's something to watch out for. If you want true originality, if you want something that is really going to challenge you, something that's going to biff you in the hooter and kind of like take you for a walk and kick the snot out of you behind the back door, this is not the place to go. This is safe. This is lovely. This is nice. This is one of it. Deserves every one of the 84 points. And if I was feeling generous and in a better mood, I might give it 85. Who knows, right? I just want you to be aware that there is other options out there and why those other options exist and why they are so popular. I don't mean to diss this one. This one is actually quite serviceable for what it is, and I like it. In point of fact, I think that Destilería Serrallés understands this because they have also started doing various other editions that do have finishes, which is now becoming a bigger thing than it used to be. So they've got one, I think, from Zinfandel, another one from Vermouth finish, another one with cognac finish, and so on. So they certainly are trying to stretch their boundaries a little bit. I think they could do even better. I look forward to seeing what they come up with. And if Destilería Serrallés tries to go in a direction that has not yet been done before, I am really looking forward to that. But for the moment, that's what this is. It's a very nice little piece of work. It's scores 84 points, 85 if I'm feeling generous. And I think I'm going to finish this glass and enjoy the sunshine on this absolutely lovely day. Take care, everybody.